When I think of Vancouver's Chinatown, I picture open markets, paper lanterns, steamed buns, and Dr. Sun Yat-sen's classical Chinese arden. But these days, Chinatown is a bit different. Now there are cafes like Starbucks, and there's cyclists and hipsters going to places like Umaluma. But then there's even bigger changes, like this building. And this building isn't alone. There are several new developments being proposed for Chinatown. All that change has sparked conversation on the future of this neighborhood, and not everyone seems to agree what that should look like. Chinatown has been getting a lot of development love lately. Since 2010, 11 new buildings have been constructed here, with another 5 possibly on the way. For many people, this is cause for concern. Many say that these new buildings threaten the historic character of Chinatown. They're too tall, and they're making the neighborhood unaffordable. Well, a couple weeks ago, City Council made a move to address those concerns. The main change? Rules that would limit the height of new developments in a move that many are describing as downzoning. The properties in the south end of Chinatown currently allow up to 120 feet and 150 feet tall buildings. After City Council's downzoning change, these properties will only allow 90 feet tall buildings. All that basically means that new developments in Chinatown will now have to be much shorter. For all the organizations and residents that are wary of these new buildings, this is a pretty big win, but not everyone is on board. Other groups, such as Chinatown Voices, have come out against the downzoning policy. They believe new developments can revitalize Chinatown and bring more businesses and people to the neighborhood. And honestly, shorter buildings are much less lucrative investments, so many worry that this could mean no new buildings at all. Right now, it can seem like Chinatown is divided between those that see new developments as a threat and those that see them as an opportunity. But I don't think it's that black and white. And to understand the situation a bit better, we need way more context. Let's start with some history. For a long time, Chinatown was a hotspot for Chinese commerce and society in the Lower Mainland. And for a while, it was also the only neighborhood for Chinese residents because, racism. But many say that ever since the 1980s, this community has been in decline. The Chinese community in Vancouver is now much more spread out, and most choose to live and spend their money in communities outside of Chinatown, such as Richmond. This has left businesses in Chinatown struggling to adapt and attract new shoppers to their stores. A report to the city found that 64% of the businesses in the area reported a decrease in revenue between 2008 and 2011, and many of these shops are just choosing to close their doors. So in some ways, these new developments are breathing new life into Chinatown, bringing new businesses and more people to the area. But these new developments are also coming at a cost, and a very expensive one at that. At 188 Kiefer Street, a 2-bedroom condominium sold for $898,000, and the rent for a 2-bedroom apartment at the neighboring Blue Sky Chinatown is over $2,000 a month. Meanwhile, the median household income in Chinatown is about $24,000 a year. The reality is that most of the current residents can't afford the new housing being built here. These developments might be helping the local economy of Chinatown, but they will almost certainly displace some of its most vulnerable residents. Now, I have to say something here. Rents increasing and people being pushed out of their community are very real concerns. But this new downzoning policy that's coming through City Council is very unlikely to address those issues because shorter developments don't mean affordable developments. Let me explain. When you develop a property, there are basically 2 things you pay for: the cost of the land and the cost of constructing the building. And in Vancouver, the price of land is fucking expensive. So by building more and taller, you can spread the cost of the land into more units, making them cheaper. Having shorter buildings means that the cost of the land is spread into fewer units, making them more expensive. Even in the downzoning policy report to Council, city staff acknowledged that social and affordable housing can only be achieved through allowing additional height and density or through senior government funding subsidies. But all that being said, it's pretty easy to see that these new developments, they just don't fit into the neighborhood. It's hard to quantify, but it's very easy to feel. Whether it's the trendy restaurant that's replacing the grocery store or the square apartments next to the historical buildings, there's something foreign about these changes that doesn't sit well with the community. It doesn't feel like an evolution of Chinatown, it feels like an invasion. From here on out, this is just my humble opinion, but I think there's some common ground here. It's clear that Chinatown is under a lot of pressure to change, and the community here doesn't want to lose its identity in the process. I think we can all agree on that. But what's really causing this divide is this downzoning decision around building height, and I find that incredibly unfortunate because building height is not the root issue here. The root issue, at least in my opinion, is how we let Chinatown evolve in a way that keeps housing affordable, helps local businesses stay viable, and ultimately respects the roots of this community. And I don't think those issues are necessarily at odds with each other. The conversation needs to move beyond height, and when it does, if it does, you might find that Chinatown isn't as divided as you think. Okay.